everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Around the Tech Table.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah. We're going to do something new today. This will be maybe the first episode of this series, maybe the second, depending on when it gets released. Who knows? But it's going to be the green room. So you guys have already been taking part in the webinar series part of Around the Tech Table.
At least we hope you have.
Yeah, if you haven't, make sure
You should.
check us out on the Facebook and the website and the MailChimp. Sign up for the webinars. We got some great ones coming up. We got Alan Heath, which might have happened or is going to happen. And then to be announced, registration coming soon. We're going to do Ultratech, differences between fog and haze, and a special guest. Should we tell them who the special guest is now or save it for later?
Yeah, you may as well tell them why not.
All right. We worked some magic, and we were able to get the chief fire marshal for the town of Brighton to be on the call with us for that one. So he can kind of walk us through what to do and what not to do to maybe...
And not so much how the equipment works as much as what you can do and can't do in your building.
Yeah, how to avoid those unwanted trips from the fire department, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So,
and then
he'll also talk to you too about how to actually utilize the fire department to allow you to do what you want to do in your facility.
Yeah, so a little twofold, but give you some tips and tricks on how to actually use special effects that Rachel and Tony are going to talk about. And then later on in the month, we got your audio ecosystem with Yamaha and Nexo, with John and Trace from Yamaha Nexo, working with Nick Gonsman here for all you lighting people. We're going to do an EOS 3.0 augmented session with Nick Gonsman here.
Yep, that'll be fantastic. Nick's always fun.
Yeah, and then I think maybe Sennheiser was talking about trying to set something up with us.
Yep,
so
that was on them, so we're waiting to hear back.
So a couple great webinars lined up here for the next couple of months. But back to what we're doing here today, the other half of Around the Tech Table is going to be the green room, the chill hangout place, if you will.
Green room.
The green room. What happens in the green room stays in the green room. So, but it's a chance for you to get to know some of our reps and some of the names and faces you see and hear around the shop here. So, we got some people lined up to come on the show here.
Yep.
And we are joined in this episode. We are joined by Dave Dusman from Richard Dean,
buddy,
and we're going to chat about microphones, bourbon, wine.
Yeah.
Getting stuck in Australia, maybe. So
I had audio gear for this webinar or this podcast.
Yeah, how being a rep allows you to have like a $10,000 Zoom setup in your basement. So. Make sure to stick around and check it out. But thanks for coming by, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Applied Audio!
Tell me where my friends go.
Applied Audio. Applied Audio.
So tell me where my friends go.
It was discovered today that the rings around the planet Saturn are in fact lost airline luggage.
Tell me where my friends go.
Fade to Applied Audio.
So like how many watts is his amplifier, man?
About 1 million.
That's cool.
Tell me where my friends go.
Applied Audio, Captain.
Child, when mama ain't happy, nobody happy.
Okay, now put that drill right over here. Oh, yeah. Oh, that feels good.
Applied Audio.
Tell me where my friends go.
Careful with the drums. Careful with the drums.
Well, I was born to sing, but now I just whistle.
Applied Audio!
Tell me where my friends go.
272-9280.
So welcome, Dave. You want to introduce yourself to our guests here and maybe tell us a little bit about the setup you got going on for today's Zoom meeting?
Sure, I'm Dave Dusman. I am currently the upstate New York manufacturer's reps for Shure, QSC, Barco, Denon Marantz Pro, Acoustical Fulfillment, and a handful of other really cool lines.
Allen and Heath.
Allen and Heath, digital mixing consoles. Can't forget them.
Yep.
And I've been
You got all
doing
the
that.
fun toys.
I got all the good stuff. You know? I've been repping in this territory since 2005.
Long time.
Of course, I've known you guys at Applied since before you guys were at Applied.
Yeah. You used to work in Rochester, didn't you?
I lived and worked in Rochester. I was a part of the staff at the Eastman School of Music in the recording department from 1988 to 1999. And I left there and struck out on my own, just doing some freelance recording. Built a studio in Rochester called West End Mastering. That was primarily a post-production room because most of what I did as a recording engineer was remote location work, since I primarily did classical and jazz.
Sure.
Sure, you do. You still get into that today, or?
I do some. Yeah, I pulled back a little bit, but yeah, I still have some clients that I just, for instance, last year finished up a guitar CD for a classical guitarist at Birchfield Penny Art Gallery. Has a lovely little. It's a sort of a recital hall here on the Buff State campus.
Okay.
That was just released. They just had the release party a couple of weeks ago. So that's still keep my hand in some of those projects.
Nice.
Cool.
Can't forget where you came from. So
Exactly.
Well, gotta keep up with the times.
Sure. So what you concoct there for your audio setup for today's adventure?
Well, I have a Shure Ksm 313 ribbon microphone sitting here in front of me with a lovely
a crap microphone.
Sure, running your mill like $25 Amazon mic, right?
Just something I pulled out of the closet. So I was talking with Mike DeFries at QSC a week or so ago about the setup that I have down here in the basement and about some of the things that I was doing. And he said, that's just an abuse of technology. So it kind of is. I mean, the microphone is running into a Shure Anti 4-in box, which is sitting right here beside me. That's plugged into a switch that's behind me, as is the QSC touchscreen, 8-inch touchscreen that's sitting here controlling this whole array. That switch then feeds to the other side of the room. It feeds another switch that's feeding a QSC Core 110 that's handling all of the processing, feeding USB out then as the interface to the computer that's running Zoom, then also feeding Dante out to another Anti 4 out, which is feeding two Tannoy powered monitors for playback from the far side.
Excellent.
And of course, the camera is a QSC PTZ controllable camera. So, I can do stuff like this right from where I am here.
There you go.
Well, you wouldn't be the rep if you didn't have all the cool toys in your house.
That's right.
All we got was this MV7 from you and Bill and Ben over at Shure. So thanks for hooking us up with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but at least you've got those. I don't have any. I don't even have any.
The rep can't even get them.
All I've got is this silly old KSM 313.
Yeah, junker.
It's just garbage microphone.
Oh God. No, just kidding. That stuff is really nice.
Awesome. So you said you're based out of Buffalo now?
Yep, I've been living in Buffalo since 2001 and started repping in 2005. So I've been crisscrossing the territory. I know the thruway about as well as anybody.
Sure of that.
Nice. So what is your territory? How far do you go?
I have what's called upstate New York. So essentially it's all of New York State except the metro area. So we end at the Hudson Valley essentially.
Okay.
And then the PA line. So I don't go down into Pennsylvania at all.
Okay.
And then the firm I work with, Richard Dean Associates, is based out of Boston, actually Newburyport, which is a little town just north of Boston.
Sure.
And so they cover all of the New England area.
Nice.
Okay.
So
what's RDA's website?
www.richarddean.com.
That's right. So if anyone wants to check that out.
Yeah, we'll drop the link in the comment section below too.
Yeah,
so
you can, check out the line card. There's some
there's
links
quite a few
there
pieces.
to trainings and links to some manufacturer hosted events that are geared toward end users. So
sure, I know
stuff.
you're doing a bunch of stuff with us too as we're trying to launch the webinar series here. We did one with Shure not that long ago, and we got another one with Alan and Heath either coming up or just happened, depending on when we release this episode here. So, so if it's before it, go register. If it's after, go check it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
If it's before January 14,
you should go register. Otherwise, go find it where you found this video.
Right, exactly.
And check it out.
Exactly.
And hopefully, well, not hopefully, we won't be doing this for too much longer. You know, hopefully the pandemic ends soon. But as long as the pandemic's happening, we're going to try to keep up with these webinars.
Keep giving you guys content.
Well, and it's a great idea, and it's a lot of fun. Just for something like this, a nice informal chat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we figured it's the customers come in and we're like, oh, let me call Dave, or do you know Dave? And they're just sitting there thinking, who's Dave?
Yeah, exactly.
Figured this would be a good chance for you to introduce yourselves and put a name to a face for the customers here. So
it's interesting. Dan called me yesterday morning, and he said, "Hey, I got a customer that wants to look at an Allen and Heath SQ console and maybe a QU console. Do you have any of that stuff around?" I said, "Well, yeah, I've got an SQ7. That's at your shop." And I've got a QU24 that's also at your shop.
It's in the back by the wall. I know right where it is.
And he got up from his desk and walked around the corner and said, "Oh yeah, here it is."
So it is. That's funny because we heard that from the other side. We had no idea what the conversation was. But I remember him saying that, "Hey, I should probably get up from my desk once in a while."
Well, that's the great part about being a rep.
Yeah.
Is just getting, we talk about all this stuff that I've got sitting here, but this is gear that's, I use so that I know about it. But it's also a great excuse when something shows up at the door and my wife looks at it and says, "What's this?" "Oh, don't worry about it, honey. It's just a rep sample."
Yeah, sample.
Just
don't worry. I didn't put it on our credit card. Don't worry.
That's one of the great parts about being involved with a company that has two main offices, one here in upstate New York and one up in New England. Is that there's a lot of gear between the two.
There's a lot of gear.
Sure. Now, do you guys have to share demo gear between the two offices, or how does that work?
No. They
Dave's
will
got his
tell
own.
They will tell you that Dave's gear is Dave's gear. I'm a little particular about my gear, but that's just so that I know where it is.
Right.
Sure.
I find, and hopefully none of the Boston guys will look at this video, but I find that if I ship gear to Boston, it falls into the black hole and I never see it again.
It goes away. Where'd that go? I don't know.
And while, yes, it's our equipment, it all belongs to the company.
Sure.
I like knowing what I've got.
Right.
I pretty
Where it
much
is.
know everything that I have.
And where it exactly is.
And where it is.
Sure.
Who I loaned it to and when I got it back. I mean, I keep a spreadsheet of that stuff. Plus I keep a fairly good mental note and,
Got a good feel for where things are at any given time.
So if somebody says, "Hey, can I check out a microphone?" I say, "Yes, I have one and it's here. I'll get it to you."
Yep.
Or can I check out this Barco click share unit? Yeah. I either got one to send to you or I know where it is and I'll go pick it up.
I think it's in Boston, but I'm not sure.
No, you can't because I sent it to Boston and it'll never come back.
Right.
Take note, guys. He's coming for you.
Right.
It's a good bunch.
Right.
They're great guys to work with.
Yeah, it seems like from what we know of everybody up there. So
they don't get down here nearly enough, but
Well, that's what I'm here for. So
yeah, exactly.
So now Fred Renzo retired, correct?
Yep, our buddy Fred, he retired back in September.
What's he doing with his life now?
I haven't spoken to him directly, but he talked to Bill and a couple of the guys up there, and he said, "Geez, I'm busier in retirement than I ever was."
I hear that's the way it goes.
I know he has a brother that is in the VA hospital, and he was doing a lot of work on his brother's home to help him return home.
Sure.
And so I know that kept him quite busy for a while. And
Gotcha.
of course, with the winter months being upon us, he's not able to ride his motorcycle, so I'm sure he's itching to get back out on the bike.
You and your wife almost spent quarantine in Australia or something, right? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, that's some good stories there.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of that story. Diane and I had a trip to London, England, many years ago with one of my recording clients. I was invited to come along and act as an assistant recording engineer for a session with the London Symphony Orchestra at Abbey Road.
Oh, cool.
It took me all of a millisecond to say, yeah, sure, I'll go.
Sign me up.
I'm going to come along and just sit there.
You
and listen
weren't even halfway through the sentence. You already said yes.
I was like, yeah. And while we were there, one night in a hotel room, we were watching TV, and this comedian comes on by the name of Tim Minchin. And he's an Australian guy, and just hilarious. I mean, we laughed so hard our sides hurt. It's one of those, you just couldn't stop.
Sure.
And so, this developed what has been a lifelong obsession with Diane ever since.
Right.
And was it last? I'm trying to think which year, but last year-ish, we're sitting on the couch watching TV, and she says, "Hey, Tim Minchin added some dates to his concert." I said, "Oh, that's nice."
This has got to be like 2019, I think, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about this at the expo, I think.
Yeah, 2019, because we left early.
Right after the expo, which was February. So
this is fall of 2019. I said, "Oh, that's nice." She says, "Yeah, I got tickets." I said, "Oh, that's great." I said, "When is it?" She said, "It's in March." "Oh, that's cool. Where is it?" She said, "Sydney." I said, "Sydney, New York?"
Because there's a whole lot going on there.
So I said, "All right, well." So we made plans, and we decided to go to Sydney to see this comedian. And of course, other things. And we had made these plans and had it all set up long before
COVID.
COVID hit the shore, and it got to be March, and it got to be the morning of. We were ready to leave, and she said, "Well, I got a note overnight that the Minchin concert has been canceled." Because at that point, Australia was limiting indoor gatherings to 500 people, and then all of a sudden it was limited to 50 people.
Right.
Just like we did here, very similar.
Sure.
And we had a tough decision to make, and that was, do we stay or do we go? And I said, well, we had a whole itinerary planned. We were going to be there for 10 days or 12 days.
I was going to say a couple of weeks, yeah.
And one of the things was a tour of the Sydney Opera House and the Harbour Bridge, and just a lot of fun stuff. We're going to spend 5 days in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Wine and cheese.
Lots of wine, lots of cheese.
Right.
So we said, let's go anyway. In hindsight, maybe not the best decision, but we went.
Well, at the time, it wasn't really serious here.
At the time, we had 200 cases in the whole country.
Yeah.
Right.
So we said, well, how bad can it be?
Right.
Sure.
So we went. And,
how quickly that changes.
Yeah, here we are.
As you're trying to scramble to find a way home.
Well, we landed on a Sunday, and that day, the Prime Minister declared that anybody who entered the country after midnight on Sunday night had to quarantine for 14 days in a hotel.
Okay.
So we just squeaked past that deadline.
Okay.
We said, all right, well. So then we decided to make some alterations and move up our Opera House tour.
Okay.
So that we could get that in just in case.
Right.
And we did, which was good, because that was kind of a bucket list thing of mine, was to tour the Opera House. And,
sure.
And then we did the bridge climbs. They climb up over.
Yeah, that's just
on
insane.
top of the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
No,
Krusty doesn't like heights. So.
I don't do heights.
Yeah, you wouldn't do so well.
No, I'll be on the ground waiting for you. Like literally the dirt.
So that was a lot of fun. And then we went, and we had planned to spend 2 nights, in a place in an area of the city called Newtown, which is just, not really a suburb, but just a section of Sydney. And that's, it was walking distance of a theater where the show was supposed to be. So we were there, and got a notice from the travel agent that our flight to Melbourne had been canceled.
Okay.
I thought, well, all right, no big deal. I had talked to a lot of people while we were there, and they said, oh, it's a beautiful drive to Melbourne down the coast.
It's only like an 8 or 10 hour drive or something. So
yeah.
I said, we'll rent a car. We'll just drive to Melbourne. It'll be fun. We already had hotel rooms booked, and I really wanted to see that area.
Sure.
Right.
And as I'm looking at rental cars, I thought, maybe I should check the return flight home.
Yeah. Take a quick gander.
And it was canceled.
Good thing you did.
Yeah. And I said, well, I think that's the final nail in the coffin.
That's our cue to leave.
The prime minister had at that point shut down all international travel.
Sure.
Which meant the one airline that you can get in and out of Australia on, which was Qantas, was going to be shutting down. There were no inbound flights at that point, and there were only a couple of outbound flights.
Yeah, whatever was left, yeah.
And,
so you literally took one of the last flights out, huh?
We took one of the last flights out. Yep.
Take anything you got.
So I spent, the 14-hour flight from Sydney to Los Angeles, in steerage, tucked in the middle seat of 3 rows.
Yeah, that's
what you got a seat. I'll take it.
Yeah.
It was an Airbus 360, which is a huge plane.
Sure. I'll happily ride baggage.
But so we got back to LA, and I thought, well, at least we're in the U.S.
Yes,
right. If nothing else, you can just rent a car and drive.
You rent a car and drive.
So, but we managed to make it. We got from LA to Chicago, and then Chicago to Buffalo.
Nice.
Sure.
It was eerie coming through Chicago.
It was probably pretty empty at that point, right?
At this point, mid-March, nobody there.
Because I
all
know
restaurants and bars were closed.
Yeah.
You could count the people walking up and down the aisles.
Sure.
Yeah,
if you've ever been to O'Hare, that place is packed with all the terminals. So
it's insane.
Yeah. It's
So
crazy.
it was really eerie. And I had been through there, in January.
Sure.
For, I forget where I was headed, but, it was
Go
O'Hare.
to NAM or something.
Usual O'Hare traffic.
Sure.
To be there just a few weeks later, it's like really bizarre.
That was the last time you flew anywhere, right?
That was the last time. we got home on whatever date in March, and we haven't been to a restaurant or out of the town. Well, I've been out of town a couple of times, but
sure.
No, it's been tough.
Jeez.
No, but you're a big car guy, aren't you? You wouldn't mind that drive from Los Angeles to Buffalo.
Well, as long as I could get something fun to drive, sure, I'd drive from LA back home.
That's right.
I drove from Buffalo to Reno.
Yeah, I was going to say you were.
Yeah, you did like a car collector show or something, right?
Yeah, there's a big Hot August Nights in Reno every year. Wasn't this year, but the year before.
Sure.
And we had at the time we had a BMW convertible, a little 335i convertible. And drove that out there. My wife and I drove out and met up with my sister, who lives in Sacramento. So she and her husband drove in, and we all met up in Reno and hung out for a week. And had a blast.
Yeah.
Really good time. Yeah, I miss traveling. I miss the driving.
Yeah.
Sure.
I miss getting out and seeing people.
I suppose your office really is probably more your car than anywhere else.
Yeah.
When everything's in full swing, obviously.
Now this whole iteration of the office has come about because of COVID, because I spent so much time down here. I thought, well, might as well throw some paint in the walls and put some floor down and hang some shelves and
sure
make at least someplace you want to hang out.
Well, I mean, you did a nice job. You got a bar and a record player.
Exactly.
Yeah, got the turntable gone. Got the old antique hi-fi gear out, and there's a phone which I don't know where it is.
Life of the rep.
It'll ring for a while and then stop.
Somebody's looking for something. They need that KSM you got there.
Yeah. There are actually a few microphones I don't lend out, and that's one of them.
Actually, that's a better question. Let's talk about that real quick, because you do have quite the mic inventory. Can you kind of maybe take us through a little bit of what your favorites are and what you like to use and
what's in the closet? It's actually been sort of a thought I've had for a while to do for something like this. Say, well, what's in your mic closet?
Yeah.
And actually walk over and open up the closet and show you what's in there. But there's a lot. I've been engineering for a long time.
Been collecting microphones for a long time.
Collecting microphones. I mean, the first real professional quality mics I ever bought would have been in about 1990, and it was a pair of Neumann KM kleine microphone, Neumann KM 130s.
Okay.
Which is a short little small diaphragm Omni microphone.
Little pencil thing.
It's an outshoot of the KM84s, the old KM84s that everybody knows and loves.
Yeah, sure.
And now, of course, it's the KM184. Biggest difference, it does not have a removable capsule like the old ones did. So I bought the KM130s, and I bought them for a job. I had a recording that I was hired to do at a chapel on River Campus, University of Rochester's
Oh,
River
nice. Yeah.
Campus,
Been
Okay.
there.
with a couple of trumpeters. And they were Eastman graduates. And so they found me through the Eastman recording department.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, we want to make a record. And we hear you're the guy. And I said, I'm the guy. So I bought these microphones and a really nice microphone preamp from John Hardy, the M1, and a Sony DAT recorder. Remember DAT recorders?
Yeah.
And spent several weeks, in the evenings going out to River Campus and recording with these folks. And after those, I bought.
You got some vintage stuff too, don't you?
I've got some vintage stuff. I have. I know what I bought after those. I bought a pair of TLM 170s.
Oh, there you go.
Which is
That's
a
nice
large
piece.
diaphragm.
That's a nice
microphone
mic.
from Neumann.
Yeah.
I have an AKG C24, which is a solid state stereo microphone with the C12 capsules in it.
Okay.
That's a nice piece.
So it's a great microphone, and it still works, and it works just fine. I have a pair of C412As, which is the predecessor to the 414, and it's between the C12, which is the tube version, the big long
Sure.
tube mic that is thousands of dollars these days if you can find one
Right.
in good working order. That C12 capsule is the CK12 capsule. Everybody loves that capsule, and of course coupled with a tube stage amplifier, it's fantastic.
Sure. Right.
So these use the same capsule as the C12, but they have a new Vister instead of a tube. And they're in the first iteration of the C414 body.
Okay.
And that has a multi-pin connector on it that feeds to a power supply, a remote power supply, which has a pattern select on it. So you actually have a 7 pattern select on the power supply.
Okay, cool.
Gotcha. That's kind of cool.
So I have a pair of those. They still work. They work just fine.
Probably
Just
another
for-
one of
just
those
for
things
fun,
you
eh?
don't lend out to people.
Yeah,
No.
just for fun, I just Googled them. They're going for about $6,000.
Yeah, they're tucked away neatly in the cabinet.
Yeah, that's a piece to kind of retire on right there.
I stumbled across a Neumann it's a U89,
Okay.
which is a U87 that you put in the dryer and shrunk.
Okay.
So it looks for all the world like a U87.
It's a large diaphragm though, right?
It is still a large diaphragm.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And it still has a multi-pattern. It's a 3-pattern. It's a cardioid, a figure 8, or an omni. Still a solid state body. But I found that in a little music store in Albany.
No kidding.
And just
Guy didn't know what he had.
Oh no, he knew what he had. It was on my usual rounds, and I saw that and I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool. What do you need to get out of that?" And he had he had a perfectly reasonable price on it, but since I was the rep,
Right.
I said, "Well,
maybe help me out a little bit."
help me out a little bit," and he was very, gave me a fantastic deal on it, so I snagged it. So
Nice.
I still have that.
That's cool. Yeah, I knew you had quite the cool little collection of microphones. So.
I've got.
Nice.
I have this, the 313. I also have a 353.
Okay.
Which is the big brother to this.
Right.
Which I've used. That's great on saxophone or brass. It's so warm and mellow.
Sure.
And then the usual. I've got 414s, which I do loan out to you guys quite often.
Yeah, the staples.
I've got a pair of each of the XL2s and the XLSs. What else is in there? I have some microphones that I don't use. Remember when the wall came down between Berlin, the East and the West?
Sure.
And all of a sudden, all these oddball microphones that were, sort of Russian microphones started flooding the market. I can't think of the name of them. I have to go grab them to remind me of the name of them. They're little small cardioid, and I have a pair of them. Again, I found in a music store and bought them. They were cheap. They're still, they're $100 a piece. They're still nothing overly special. but they're Russian made.
Are they like Martin Mitchell's or Octavos or something?
What is it?
Octava.
Octava.
Yeah, that's right. I knew it was something like that.
It's a pair of Octavas. And I used them a couple of times, and I don't use them much anymore because they're so mismatched. I mean, they're the same microphone, but they sound completely different from one to the other.
Sure.
So to use them as like overheads,
these
it
things
would be great for.
Right. You can't because they're just so different.
They're just too mismatched, which is common of that stuff, of that era microphone. That's the problem, is that, you can buy 10 of them and no 2 of them will sound the same.
Sure.
It's funny.
But even the new stuff you get, if it's, they sell them as a matched pair, and if you don't buy a matched pair, if you're critically listening, right, you'll still be able to tell the difference.
It depends. Yeah, it depends. I mean, the good manufacturers that are making recording microphones that you're paying more than $50 for.
Sure.
Yeah, you've got pretty tight tolerances. You've got microphones that they're gonna be really close.
Yeah.
Yep. But when you're shelling out $1,000 a microphone for a matched pair,
right?
You expect them to be a matched pair.
Well, yeah, and at that point, the manufacturer is physically picking stuff off the line,
right?
Sure.
And measuring them and matching them up.
Sure.
Versus just selling you a stereo pair. There's a difference between just buying a stereo pair and buying a matched pair.
Right.
Sure.
It's interesting when you talk about a microphone. The first thing I tell them is, look at spending more money on one microphone or 2 than trying to buy 10. Because somebody says, well, I got to mic a drum kit, so I got to go buy 8 microphones. I need a kick, I need a snare, I need a hat, I need a floor tom, a rack tom, I need a pair of overheads.
Right.
All right, there are drum kit out there, drum kit systems from Shure and Sennheiser and everybody else makes them.
Everybody's got something,
and they're fine. They're fine.
Right.
But if you're looking to get something, really seriously spend some money on your first real microphone, buy one good microphone that'll, do a lot for you. For instance, an AKG 414.
Right. You can use that.
There isn't much you can't do with that microphone.
Right.
Sure.
Some people may feel it's a little bright, but you can always turn high end down.
Yeah, you got an EQ, so you can.
If it ain't there, you can't turn it up.
Right.
Well, with all the digital consoles now and all the DAWs, I mean, you pretty much can insert as many EQs as you want to kind of shape.
You can insert EQs and processing and shaping, but you still need to capture it at the front.
Right, it's got to be there.
Yeah, if it's not there, it's not there.
This idea that you can take an SM57 and make it sound like a U87, no, you can't.
But I bet you can pound nails with that 57.
Getting to your point, John, that you asked about, what to look for in a good microphone. Frankly, it comes down to off-axis rejection. Just about everything that anybody's buying for studio use is going to be a cardioid microphone.
Yeah.
And to get the cardioid pattern, how do you do that? If you're doing it with a dual diaphragm microphone, like a 414 or a U87, then you're combining the front and the back capsules in different ways to create that rejection. But if you're using a single diaphragm microphone, which is 90% of the rest of what's out there in the world, you're using a series of baffling, and you're controlling the rear entry to that baffle in order to create the cancellation to get the cardioid pattern, to get that rejection. And it's that off-axis rejection. What does that off-axis stuff look like? What does that sound like? That separates the men from the boys when it comes to a good microphone. And frankly, that's what you pay for. If you look at a Neumann KM140, which is their cardioid version of the KM130s that I talked about, it's the same body, just a different capsule. Look at that. Look at a Shure Ksm 137.
Okay.
Which is an unbelievably impressive cardioid microphone. And it's not just because I'm the Shure rep. I thought that even before I was a Shure rep.
Sure. Well,
and then look at any other garden variety cardioid. And if you look at those polar plots of the off-axis rejection, these things all become omnis from about 500 hertz on down, or they get really lumpy. And when they get up around 1,000, 2,000 cycles, they start to have these points that stick out. The front-facing lobe gets really narrow.
Yeah.
And it's just pattern control.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a cardioid, but
for the average Joe who's they're looking at a PGA 58 or PGA 48 and an SM 58, and they're saying it's all a cardioid. Is that really the difference? There is just the off axis rejection in those microphones.
In those microphones, yes, a good bit of it is that. The other of it is the tuning of the diaphragm and the capsule, because they do use different capsules.
Okay.
Yeah.
An SM57 and an SM58 are in fact the same capsule. The biggest difference is the windscreen.
Yeah,
sure.
However, the windscreen does change the behavior
of that microphone,
of the microphone, and hence changes the voicing. So if you sing into a 58, it will sound different than if you sing into a 57, even though it's the same capsule.
Right.
Because you've got a different, you've got that windscreen that's going to change the voice a little bit. The PGA stuff is not quite as good a capsule, so your off-axis rejection isn't going to be quite as good. And the problem is, think about that example of a drum kit. And I've got, overhead mics, I've got a hi-hat mic, I got a snare mic, I got a rack tom, maybe 2 rack toms and a floor tom and a kick drum. Well, I might have a really nice condenser mic on my snare drum, and I got a great crisp, sharp sound out of that snare drum. But every time I hit that snare drum, every other mic around that kit is picking it up.
Sure.
Yeah, you can use noise gates, and you're going to do some processing and this and that.
Right, to try and solve some of those issues. Yeah.
But that sound is going to be in every other microphone.
Sure.
And it's going to not be going directly into that microphone. It's going to be entering from the side or from the back, or reflecting around the room. And if that off-axis sound is colored a lot and really kind of murky sounding, it's going to muddy up your whole kit.
Yeah.
And I did this back when recording orchestras and mostly doing sound reinforcement for a pops orchestra. I would insist that all of the microphones on the string section be the same microphone, be the same make and model.
Sure.
And I would try to have all of the mics on the entire orchestra be the same make and model, including the winds and the brass and the percussion. It was difficult with some rental companies because they just wouldn't have the inventory.
Right.
Sure.
Might have 10 of something or 12 of something,
but not 20 or 30 or whatever.
25 or 30 or 35.
Sure. Yeah. Because a lot of those orchestra kits, it's the same capsule, but they sell different mounts for those microphones, right? So you can have a consistent element, if you will, across
like DPA or something.
Like DPA, they sell the 4099, but they've got all the different, brass mounts, drum mounts, violin mounts, all that stuff. So,
and then the reason to do that is because every microphone has not only the same on-axis response, but the same off-axis response.
Right.
And now controlling your sound is a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because like you say, if it's there on the front end, you can't get rid of it. It's like you can EQ it all you want, but it's still there.
If you're getting a lot of really sour, side fill, side infiltration from the string mics coming from the brass section, and let's face it, every string mic is a brass mic.
Yeah.
Right. You're trying to mic an orchestra outside.
Sure.
Right.
But at least it's colored the same, the whole, and throughout the orchestra.
Your off-axis coloration is the same, so you can deal with that with a little bit of system EQ.
Yeah.
And it just makes your life so much easier.
Yeah.
Sure. So you've named some pretty cool microphones. Do you have a favorite?
It depends on the application.
Depends on the application.
That's how I am too.
It really depends what you're doing. I fall back on these KSM 130s as my main left and right pair for a lot.
Yeah.
I've also, since I've been venturing into the 192K 24-bit recording for a while now, I start to pay attention to self-noise of a microphone, which you never had to worry about before.
Right.
Sure.
Now all of a sudden,
you hear it, you're like, what is that?
There's some stuff going on there around, 90K
right.
that you're recording. And so you got to start to pay attention to the, how quiet is the microphone itself.
Yeah.
Sure.
And oddly enough, those 414s that I have, which are the newer ones with the electronic switches, they don't have the mechanical, are some of the quietest mics in my kit.
Nice.
Okay.
The KM 130s are very quiet. The 414s are very quiet. I have a pair of DPA 4030s.
Okay.
Which is a small diaphragm Omni with a high voltage. It's 130 volt phantom supply.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which I love dearly. Unfortunately, they need to be recapped. And I haven't found
to that point. Yeah.
I haven't found a repair center.
Somebody will do
who
it.
can take them and recap them, because they're old enough now. I mean, I bought them used 25 years ago. And unfortunately now they're just a little noisy.
Yeah.
And the problem is,
But I guess it depends on what you're doing with them too. If you're, critically listening, then it makes a difference. But if you use
them for drum overheads, they're probably fine.
It probably doesn't matter.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I don't use those for drum overheads.
Right. Well, let's
Seems
talk
like
about
a waste.
I was gonna say real quick. Let's talk about then modern microphones, stuff that's come out as of late. That's maybe kind of something cool or new or unique that might be a favorite of yours. Yeah, like kind of what John's pointing to. But more importantly, my thought would be like the KSM8.
KSM8 is just stunning.
That's a cool mic, right?
A dual diaphragm.
I mean, that's my favorite.
Dynamic microphone.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just what?
Right. Yeah.
To take a handheld dynamic microphone that has almost no proximity effect.
Yeah.
And lets you get 6 to 8 inches, 10 inches away from the microphone and still sound just as warm as it does when you're on top of it.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I know we have them for.
The cool part is they, if you watch the videos on it, it's kind of the design is inherently built into the handle of the microphone. So I find it really cool that they were able to transfer that into the capsule for the wireless mics they have.
Yes.
Because so much of that microphone was built into the handle of the wired microphone. So
right.
So you notice the capsule's a little bigger.
Yes.
In the wireless iteration. Give you a little more room
to make that function. Yeah.
But it works. And I know the Shure engineers would say, well, no, but it works. If you think about the old speakers that had a passive radiator in them.
Okay.
Remember the days when you had 2 woofers? I got 2 woofers. Well, one of them was just a diaphragm.
Yeah.
Didn't have any active components to it.
Right.
But it was there to provide sympathetic vibration in the cabinet at certain resonance points to extend the low frequency response.
Yep.
Well, that's exactly what this second diaphragm does. Is it resonates in the chamber and it helps to smooth out that proximity effect that you would normally get. That's how they get rid of it. It's actually a passive diaphragm. The second diaphragm is not active. It does not have a voice coil on it.
Yep.
Sure. And there's like some sort of air chamber built into it too, right?
And then it all, the magic is all in the baffling. How do you handle that sound? How do you channel that sound? And that's everybody's magic, by the way.
Sure. Yeah.
That's one of the biggest held trade secrets of any microphone manufacturer is how do we handle our baffling to create our pattern control.
Sure.
Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool mic. I know we had them for Jazz Fest 2 years ago. Now we didn't have them this past year because obviously there was no Jazz Fest, but I had the opportunity to use them for the first real time, like full on for that festival. And I found so many uses for that microphone. I had it on snare drums. I had it on guitar cabinets, horns, vocals, you name it. I put it on everything.
It's really going to shine on vocals.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Instruments, saxophone, clarinet, brass.
Yeah. Especially male vocals. I was extremely impressed with the male vocals. That definitely changed a lot for me. I know I still am pretty happy with the 9 with female vocals, but the KSM9 is actually a nice piece for that. But even for the female vocals on the 8 was still a huge improvement. So,
and part of what they've been able to do is eliminate the breakup modes, which you get on the diaphragm at mid and high frequencies. Is the diaphragm actually starts to vibrate unevenly?
Yeah, erratically. Yeah.
Breakup modes, and the KSM8 eliminates just about all of that.
Yeah, that's why it sounds so smooth.
You don't get that spike.
Yep.
People complain about a Beta 87A or something like that.
It
can be a little harsh. A little bit of that
all the betas.
Yeah.
A little bit of that is tuning. A little bit of that is breakup modes on the diaphragm.
Yeah,
sure.
They really were able to solve that with the 8.
The 8 is just smooth as silk. And
that's a cool mic.
Yeah, but I
highly recommend that if anybody's looking for a mic.
As long as you're in the pickup pattern, the consistent sound of it is key.
Yeah.
The proximity effect. So,
talking about off-axis rejection, look at the pattern control of that microphone. It is uniform from 10K all the way down to about 100 cycles.
Yeah.
It is the same. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at it, you think it's a misprint because you can't really tell
Yeah, it doesn't
the
seem to
dotted
move.
lines from
Yeah.
the straight lines.
Sure.
That
It's the
cardioid
same.
pattern is unbelievably uniform in that microphone.
Yeah, all the way down.
And that is what lends to a lot of that smoothness. It's what lends to rejection of feedback. You know, a lot of feedback in a PA system is because you got bad off-axis sound.
Yeah,
sure.
You know, you got 1K or 2K spiking out of the side of that microphone, and you know your system's going to howl.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, that's a cool piece. That's definitely high on my list. And you know, go back to when you're talking about, you know, finding yourself a good microphone, a good universal microphone that kind of does everything. That is a great piece for that application. It does just about anything I put it on. So there isn't anything I put it on that I say, well, I wouldn't do that again. I mean, literally, I did everything with it. It was in percussion. It was like, the only thing I never tried was overheads, and I think, frankly, it's probably just too far away for most applications for a dynamic microphone. But
yeah, you're better off
with a 9.
Yeah, with the 9 on it.
With a 9.
Yeah, just by 8s and 9s.
Diaphragm, something with something in a condenser.
Yeah, for sure.
No.
Pardon me.
No whiskey
no,
tonight.
Refill.
No whiskey, no bourbon tonight, there, Dave.
Well, that's coming. That's you know.
We're gonna see how late this goes.
We'll see how long we go here.
Gotcha.
That's fantastic. So back to where we were. You want to talk about Charlie a little bit and your days with Eat?
Yeah, I started out as the Harman rep.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry
for that. Yeah. I wasn't going to bring that up, but
it was my foray into repping.
Well, I guess at the time it was a good thing.
I was working with a good friend and colleague of mine here in Buffalo, installing the sound system at the Rockwell Hall on Buff State campus.
Okay.
They were putting a new system in, and my friend won the bid to do the installation for the system. And at that time, my work was a little light. I was freelancing, and I had a lot of free time on my hand, especially over the winter. So he called me up and said, "Hey, I could use some help." I said, "I'm your man."
Yeah, sure. Nothing going on.
Was this before? This was when Harman was Harman, or were they separate companies at this point, or
they had unified at this point. This was 2005.
Okay,
this
but it wasn't
Samsung
Harman
and all
yet,
that, yeah.
right?
No, this was long before Samsung.
Okay.
And the guy I was working with had actually taken this rep job, and he did it for about 2 weeks. And we were still working on the installation of Rockwell Hall, and he says, "I don't want to do this job. This just isn't for me. I'm not a rep." And I said, "I'm a rep.
Sign me up."
It. So I had an interview with the guy you all know, with Art Wall.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we met at an Indian restaurant on Elmwood Avenue here in Buffalo. And my qualifications were I was a vegetarian and I was willing to do the job.
Because Art's a vegan.
Well,
right?
because Art's vegan, right?
Art
was
has
close
since
enough.
gone vegan. And he said, "Sure."
Was he just a vegetarian at the time?
He was vegetarian at the time.
Okay.
He has since gone a little more hardcore. And so it worked great. And Art and I got along extremely well. Still do. Still
He's
talk
a good
to him.
guy.
And so I did that. And then an opportunity came to work with Charlie. And I was sort of on the fence about it. But ultimately, Charlie won me over.
Charlie's a good guy. He's good like that.
I just never looked back. It was a great guy to work for. Had a lot of fun. And I would still be with Charlie, but Shure made a change in representation. And since
they realigned everything, right? So
I was primarily brought on to do Shure for Charlie.
Yeah.
And so when Shure went away, it was kind of like, well,
you're going with the Shure.
I got to go with the Shure franchise.
Yeah,
sure.
No doubt.
And so I was with Charlie for 4 years, and now it's been almost 4 years that I've been with RDA.
Is it really? Man.
Yeah.
Oh, time flies.
Flying by. Crazy.
So.
Crazy.
Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, that you've you've repped, Harman,
Pretty
you've
much
repped Shure,
all of them.
but no Sennheiser, Neumann, or anything like that, right?
I never. No. Charlie picked up Sennheiser.
Yeah, after
that was right at the end.
Okay.
As I was leaving, and so I've never worked directly with the Sennheiser product. I like it. I like the recording product quite a lot.
Yeah, they got some nice stuff.
Their MKH line, I believe it is, the MKH 20s and 10s.
Sure. Well, they're 421s, 441s, you know,
Yeah,
the
they're
old,
standards.
the old standards.
I have a pair of 441s in my collection. I had a 421, but I sold it. I kind of wish I hadn't, but I only had one.
Yeah.
And, you know, honestly,
So-
the only thing I ever use 441s for is saxophones on a big
Yep.
band
I was
recording.
gonna say it's a
Yep.
great horn mic.
So
And I only
warm.
had one, and I thought, well, I could buy 4 more, so I'd have 5 to do a big band.
Sure.
Or I could just, I got a good friend who lives down the road that has like 6 of them, so I just borrow his.
Just get his. Yeah,
If
exactly.
I ever have a big band job, I just borrow his.
Yep.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
or I'll call
That's
you
cool.
guys up and rent
Oh, yeah.
yours.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
Well, I know some people who, depending on who you talk to, are big proponents of new microphones or new generations or iterations of microphones.
As opposed to vintage,
don't
more vintage
don't
stuff,
sound as good, you
Yeah.
know, as its predecessors, the vintage versions of it. I mean, what's your take on that?
You know, it's the same old vinyl versus CDs. You know,
Yeah.
analog versus digital.
It's all preference.
There are, I mean, I have a turntable set up here, and it works just fine. It was funny. I was looking at cartridges. I was going to buy a cartridge. I
I
have
recommend the
cartridges.
Shure white labels, but they don't make them anymore.
No, Sure quit. And I was reading some reviews, and the guy was saying, well, this cartridge has a really strong center image versus this other one, which has a little bit broader soundscape. And I'm thinking, well, let's face it, most phono cartridges have a strong center image because they got a channel separation of about 35 dB. So all they have is mono.
Right.
Right.
You know, I understand where people are coming from. When, oh, the vinyl sounds so much warmer. Yeah, okay, no. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, you
If
have
it's recorded correctly, you can probably get that same warmth out of anything.
You have dynamic range of about 50 dB on a really good record that just came out of the sleeve.
Sure.
Right.
Freshly cut. Yeah.
You know, it's just it's nostalgia, but it isn't.
Sure. I mean, you brought up the 414s with the new electronic switches. You know, some people would not be caught dead with them. They're like, you know, ULS or XLS, XLS2, you know.
Right.
I don't want that newfangled stuff. It doesn't sound as good.
We see that a lot.
Know, until somebody picks up a ULXD with a Ksm capsule on it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they go, oh, well, this sounds really good.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, or as you guys heard when the Axient stuff came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge fan of that too.
Oh my God, this sounds like a wire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some of the best stuff we have it applied for sure. That
But
stuff's amazing.
the thing is, you know, it's all a comfort factor. And the other thing is, you know, that old stuff, it doesn't perform like it did when it was new.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know,
Everything
especially
wears
old,
out.
You know, all the old capsules, that gold sputtering on that Mylar diaphragm is mils thick. It's molecules layer thick.
Yeah.
Well, it oxidizes away.
Yeah.
How often is it banged around in your work box?
It's banged around, you know.
Whatever. Yeah.
You know, I'm a little nutty. If I'm out on location, I used to take the microphones down every night and box them back up. But then I found that it took too much time to set them back up in the morning because I had to measure everything and make sure it was the right height. Right?
Put it all back where it was. Yeah.
So I started leaving them up if it's a secure location, but I bagged them. So I have a set of cloth bags that go over every microphone so that it's just not sitting there collecting dust.
Yeah.
Sure.
Diaphragms overnight.
Yeah.
I guess to the point is know your tools and know how to use your tools.
Yeah.
And don't blame your tool for being too bright.
Yeah.
And being too brittle and not sounding as good as the old tools.
Yeah.
Especially when you're using old tools that aren't functioning up to spec anymore.
Yeah.
That are just sort of covering nothing. Oh, it sounds great. It's nice and warm. No, it's not warm. It's muffled, muddy.
Right.
That's missing. That's broken microphone.
Right.
Speaking of broken microphones, I got called into a church down in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
That had, as it was still the Harman rep, they had installed this big, expensive JBL sound system and Soundcraft mixing console and all this, and they just said the system sounds terrible. It sounds muddy. It sounds muffled. The old system sounded so much better. We're really upset. I said, you know, let me come down. Let me check it out. So I went with the integrator, the guy who installed it,
Sure.
who I knew very well and trusted. And I thought, you know, if he installed it, he did it right. It's
Yeah, you
it's
weren't
good.
concerned. Yeah.
It's installed properly. So I said, well, I pull out, at the time I was the AKG rep, so I pulled out an AKG, what was the D5? Is that their dynamic?
Oh, yeah.
Dynamic mic.
Yeah.
Sure.
Pulled one of those out, plugged it in, plugged it in the console, start talking through the system. I don't know what they're talking about. This sounds great. Sounds fine. It's balanced nicely, good coverage. And they're going, oh, wow, what mic is that? That sounds really great. It's just a little D5, nothing special.
A couple $100 microphone.
Well, what are you using? So they brought up, it was an old Shure wireless. It was maybe an SLX or maybe something before that. And they plugged it in.
Capsule's got a problem, huh?
And I said, and I looked at it, how old is this microphone? I don't know. We've had it for a long time. Well, they had it a very long time. They never cleaned it. They never did anything. It was just shot.
Yeah, how many times have it been dropped and everything else?
And they're complaining that their new sound system sounds terrible. And said, well, no.
Maybe this microphone here may have some
broken plastic, dented windscreens.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
So of course, being ever the salesman, I sold them a whole new batch of wireless mics to go in the system, and it sounded great.
Nice.
And they were happy.
So, but it's don't blame your tools if you don't know how to use them.
Right. No,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure that's what you tell your students. I mean, tell us a little bit about this class you teach up at was it NTRIP up there?
NCCC, yep, Niagara County Community College. I got recruited. Gosh, I bet it's been 10 years.
I was going to say a long time.
They were starting a Pro Tools certificate program, and as part of that, it's a 1-year certificate program where you basically, obviously, study Pro Tools. But as part of that, they had an acoustics component, and the class was called Acoustics and Critical Listening. And they wanted somebody to teach that, and I got recruited by Paul Fitzgibbon. I don't know if you guys know him. He was working with Joe Schmidt at the time to actually develop the program. And he said, hey, would you be interested in developing this course and writing a syllabus and then, of course, teaching it? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? I had taught a couple of courses at Eastman while I was there. That were really fun courses. We didn't teach recording per se at Eastman,
right?
But the courses were designed as recording for musicians. And as a musician, how do you behave in a recording studio?
Sure.
What's some of the lingo? How do you ask for things? How do you talk about the sound? And so it was a real similar idea of listening, and what's the hardest thing you guys have? I know you run into this all the time when you're working with an artist, and you're trying to mix sound, and the artist says, "Well, it doesn't sound right," or
I love those. Or
it's like, well, okay, what doesn't sound right? Well, it's too loud. Okay, too loud, or it's muddy, or it's what does that mean?
Right.
I can't hear myself.
Yeah, to help musicians understand a little more of the technical lingo, and to communicate better with an engineer. Because let's face it, we all as engineers, we want our musician to be happy. We want to help them do their best job.
That's definitely our number one.
Yeah.
Because that honestly, that makes our life easy, our night easy. It makes everything smooth and simple, and everything flows when you're well prepared. And
if you're not arguing all night about,
you're trying to do what they want.
And we're translators. We have to translate their vision into reality. Into the performance.
Yeah,
sure. And so this course, basically, I don't teach any of the Pro Tools aspects of it. I use Pro Tools. I know it, but I don't teach that. I teach them about listening and how to listen critically. Because we all listen to music. We all, tap our feet and
right.
our fingers and have a good time. But how do you then focus on a certain part of the mix? And what are you listening for? And how do you know? And it's sort of inaccurate to say, well, this is a good bass sound or not a good bass sound. My way of thinking about this is, here's the bass sound you have. Here's the bass sound you want. How do you get there?
Yeah.
And it comes down to, things we've been talking about. Is it a microphone choice? Or is it if you're taking it direct, is it a DI choice? Is it the instrument? Is it the player?
Right. Is it the room?
Is it the room? You know, what are all these factors that go into what do you have? What do you want?
How do you get there?
them to fit together?
Yeah.
And so we talk a lot about listening. We listen a lot to music every week. We do some ear training drills. I have some pink noise drills where we listen to pink noise and I'll boost a certain octave band.
Okay.
10 octave bands. So from 31.5, 63, 125 on up. So you have the 10 octave centers.
Yeah.
Sure.
Working with, you know, picture a 10 band graphic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And I'm playing pink noise and I'm lifting one of those bands and then taking it back down. And their job is to guess which band I've boosted, which octave center I boosted.
Is it ridiculous that I can actually picture what you do? I've listened to enough pink noise.
Yeah, and the idea is to help focus, to help train the ear so that you're not sitting there listening going, well, this sounds bad. And you grab your EQ and you're sweeping it all around because you don't know whether it's got a low end issue or a high end issue or a mid issue.
You don't even know where to start. You're just like.
That goes away.
Yeah.
You know, that left brain side goes away and the right brain can go, it's low, mid, 350, grab it, work with it, you know.
Sure.
And that's the idea is to take that, hunting out of it so that you can be creative, to be more creative.
Right.
I liken it to tools in a toolbox.
Yeah.
You know, my dad is a mechanic. He's long since retired, but he's an automotive mechanic. Spent his entire life working on cars. And he'd walk up to a car, open the hood and say, all right, I got to take the water pump off. He could say, okay, I need a 1/2 inch, I need a 9/16, and I need a 3/4. And he'd just go to his toolbox and grab
it and come back and have everything you needed.
You know, he didn't have to get a whole set of wrenches and try them out to find which one would fit the nut.
Definitely don't know what you're talking about, Dave.
He could just look at the thing. Oh, I know what that nut size is. I've seen that. I know what I need here. I know how to and do it. And that's what I try to get to with this class and these listening drills is you have enough of a sense of the frequency spectrum. You've now been through enough drills that, okay, I know that's a low frequency, or that's a mid frequency, or that's a high frequency. And that sounds simple enough, but until you focus on it and work with it, it's not. You'd be surprised how many people say, oh, that's 10K. No, it's 250.
Yeah.
You know,
that's nowhere near there. Yeah.
That's got to be 4K. No, it's 63, you know, and you guys know, you have that experience. You've been doing it. A system starts to howl a little bit. You grab, you might be off by 1, but probably not.
You're going to be pretty close real fast.
You're going to get it out right away.
Yeah.
Because you again, that you've trained yourself. You've learned that.
Well, it's been like a year now. So, I don't
well, you'll get
the EQ on this thing.
The only thing I've mixed are these Zoom calls.
Yeah.
So the idea is that, and then also just listening to a bunch of different mixes.
Yeah.
And you guys know for years, I've been a proponent of high resolution recording.
Yeah.
And high resolution audio.
Yeah. You got Krusty to buy his Pono player.
Pono player. Yeah.
The internet has done wonders to get new artists out there. It has not done a thing for quality of recording or for quality of music in general, because now there's no filter. I mean, this is an old man talking. This is an old man with a gray beard. And long hair. Back when I was a boy, we had A&R men to actually filter out all the chaff and actually get us good artists. And now anybody can be famous.
Sure. Yeah, but I mean, even high, quote unquote, high quality, high definition audio files, you play them back, and it's like, what part of this is high definition, high quality?
Well, and it depends where it comes from.
Sure. Yeah.
Did you upsample it? Did you upsample an MP3 file? Well, it's just going to be an MP3 file.
Right.
Yeah, still garbage.
You're not putting the data back.
Yeah, it wasn't there. You're not recreating it.
That's one of the things that I spend a whole 3-hour class on MP3 and data compression. And the thing you got to remember is once it's an MP3, it's always an MP3. That data is gone. It's a lossy compression scheme.
Yeah,
sure.
So the perceptual codec that creates that MP3 file throws data away.
Yeah, arbitrarily too. Arbitrarily. So.
Well, it's not arbitrary. It's based on the codec. It's based on how you want that. Basically how small you want the file to be. Whether you're going to go to 128-bit
Sure.
or 320 or 256, or what bit rate you're looking for. But it also has an actual codec, and they are different. Some codecs are better than others, but as you know, with something like that, the playback is the standard. So playback of an MP3 file is a standard. Encoding of the MP3 file is not. You can do anything you want to encode it. The only thing that is standard is it must be able to play back on every MP3 player.
Sure.
And so the playback is standardized. It's kind of like a tape recorder, the old, or like a record. A record on a turntable has a standard RAAA curve for playback. That's fixed. Every RAAA phono preamp has the same curve in it. How you encode that record is up to you. You can do anything you want on the encode as long as it plays back on a fixed decode path.
Sure.
So, and that's the way MP3 works. And so, yeah, I mean, you can buy it, you search MP3 on Google and you get 8 million hits.
Yeah.
And you can, use any encoder you want. You can build your own encoder if you're savvy.
Sure.
And all it has to do is play back on a fixed decode cycle. But they're terrible. There's so much loss of data. I mean, you're taking, a CD is 1.414 megabits per second.
Yep.
And you're going down to the best MP3 is 320 kilobits.
Yeah.
It's a lot of loss.
1.1 million bits per second of data are gone.
Right.
And that's not going to hurt the signal? Okay. I'm old and even I can hear that.
Yeah.
So now don't get me started. I can talk for an hour just on MP3s.
So moral of the story, go out there and find a Pono player if you can still find one.
It's any high res. There's a bunch of decent high res players.
Yeah.
But to your point about buying high res files, you got to be careful. You got to watch what you're getting because some of it's just upsampled stuff. And if you just upsample an MP3 file, then that's junk.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now
this album recorded, back in the 70s. It's high definition, remastered.
Yes. Now there is, if you're taking the original tape master,
right,
where the data is actually there,
playing it back carefully and sampling it carefully, you can make a high res, 192K 24-bit recording of that, as long as they're telling you that this is a digitally sampled analog, from the original.
Right.
Or if they're taking the CD and upsampling it, okay, you're not gaining anything, but at least you're maintaining the integrity of the CD.
Sure.
But you got to watch. You're right. You got to be careful because there's so much stuff out there that is just.
Yeah.
Oh, it's 96K. No, it's not.
Yeah. And that's the thing with the Pono. Like I kind of cut back on using it with the Tidal because if I find something on Tidal that just doesn't sound good, I don't play it back anymore. I find something different. But when you're buying music and putting it on your player, and then you're buying stuff that's like, oh, wait a minute, that doesn't sound so good, and then you're stuck with it. So it's like, you're out a lot more money as opposed to just paying a subscription and getting the high res, option to play whatever you want essentially. So,
yeah.
But
now I having worked with, and interestingly enough, we talk about this. I've been recording at 192 24-bit for a decade now, at least. The system I use is called Sadie, Studio Audio Digital Equipment. It's a British-made platform, and that was one of the first platforms that actually let you do double sample rate, so 44.1 or 48, 88.2, 96K. That was one of the very first platforms that you could actually record at 96K on.
Okay.
Even before you could find 96K converters. I've been with Sadie ever since, and as soon as they went to quad sample rate, I bought a quad sample rate converter, and I told you I'm working on this guitar project that I recorded, and that was all 192 24-bit, and I had just recently remodeled the studio as part of this whole COVID rehash of life.
Sure.
And actually that was brought on, I've told you guys about this. I've had some remodeling work done here at the house. And as part of having a new sunroom put on, they had to cut a hole for a crawl space access.
Yeah.
And well, they missed it in the early stages of the project. The building inspector said, "Hey, where's the crawl space access?" And I went, "Oh, we
chainsaw."
So
Be right back.
long and the short of it is they had to cut a hole in the wall in my studio to create access to this crawl space, which meant, coming down with a water-powered concrete saw.
Yeah, making a giant mess. Yeah.
This big around, spewing shit. So I had to empty the studio out. I had to take all of the equipment out, move it out.
Everything.
Because I wasn't leaving anything in there
Yeah.
to get wet or dusty or anything else.
You're so particular about your stuff anyways, let alone that kind of mess going on.
Yeah. Okay. So of course, thought, well, here's the opportunity to do what I've been wanting to do for years and start it over. So scrub everything down, repaint all the walls, put some new carpet in, put a new ceiling in. I actually I had sort of a weird ceiling in that was, I didn't put drop ceiling in, but I floated wallboard in between the joists.
Yeah.
With the idea that it would create a diaphragmatic absorber and cut down on low frequencies, which it did extremely well.
Yeah.
But it didn't do anything for the high frequency control because it's wallboard. It's half inch.
Just bouncing around.
Half inch. So I put rock wool up there and I put burlap up and I changed everything around and put some carpet down, just completely redid the room. And it actually sounds really good. And that's, there's a topic for a whole podcast in itself.
Whole nother one. Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to get you back on for a studio mic closet tour or something.
Yeah.
And so that's all done. And as part of finishing that up and deciding on speaker location, it was right around the time that they were releasing this CD and having an online CD release party, because obviously you can't have a CD release party.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'll test, because I set the workstation back up. Fortunately, I didn't have to dismantle the rack with all the computer gear in it, because that's in a separate room. That's all separate from the studio.
Sure.
So I put I put a new table in. I kind of set the studio up a little more as a listening room. Monitor up and all the controls up, fired it up, and I thought, well, let's just make sure everything's working properly. So I brought this session up, the original session files that were post editing. So they were all the edited finished masters, but pre any post production.
Okay, sure. So
pre any reverb added, any compression, any EQ, any down sampling for CD. Right. This was the original raw 192K edited files. And I hit play and I sat down on the couch and I went, holy shit. I'd forgotten how good this record sounded before I had to make a CD out of it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And listen, the CD sounds great.
Yeah.
And I got the highest compliment I could get from the artist's wife, who said, I listened to the CD and it sounded like him.
That's cool.
Okay, well, that's pretty high praise.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
You did your job right there. So.
That's right. That's all I needed.
But man, when I went back to those high-res files, just full resolution.
It's amazing.
It's like, whoa. It's just amazing. Just incredible. And it's unfortunate that most of us can't experience that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because people don't believe me. They think I'm just a crazy old man tilting at windmills.
He's just trying to sell me stuff. It's his job.
Getting back to, what microphone do you want to pick? You got to listen to them. You got to have a sense. And at our point in life, you guys have used hundreds of different microphones in hundreds of different applications.
Yeah,
so you know what stuff sounds like, what works, you have experience, and you go back to your old standbys.
Yeah, you can definitely walk into a space and go, all right, put those on there, do this, that, the other thing, and you know where you want to be. So
what the heck is that? Give me an SM58 front and center, and get rid of that.
And I'm the same way, in a recording situation, when I'm planning for it, doing pre-production, I go, okay, well, I'm going to start with this. I'm going to start with this. I'm going to go in with that. And 9 times out of 10, that's what I use.
Yeah.
That 10th time, however,
I might
change.
Yeah. Switch something out a little bit.
And I'll tell you where it comes into play. And this is just a little off topic, but it always comes to mind when I think about it. There are 2 places. One place is with a saxophonist. And I had 2 favorite mics. I had the Neumann U87
Sure.
or the TLM 170. Both large diaphragms from Neumann.
Yeah.
U87, old technology. Even a new U87 is still most of the old circuitry. Obviously, they've updated some things. It's quieter. It's got better RF rejection than the old ones do. Old U87s have terrible RF rejection, by the way.
Right.
Sure.
Just awful. New ones are better. Same thing with the AKG 414s. The old 414s, RF rejection was awful.
Sure.
They're noisy.
Right.
Yeah.
Get a new one with the electronic switches. Well, electronic switches, they don't get dirty, so they don't go
right
and cut out on you, and the circuitry is much quieter. Anyway, that's not the point. I'd have my two favorites, a U87 or a TLM 170 for a saxophone, and it depended on the player.
Right.
If the guy played with a hard, thick reed and had a really sharp, bitey tone, put a U87 on it.
Something a little smoother.
It would mellow him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Sure.
If he had, a really, or actually the opposite, I'd use the TLM 170. If he had a really dark, kind of warm, soft tone, put the U87 on because it has that presence peak in it.
Yeah, get a little more clarity out of it.
What everybody likes about the U87 is it's got a presence boost from 2K to 8K. People don't know that. They think, it's just a nice flat microphone. No, it's not.
No.
There's nothing flat about it.
Makes you intelligible.
But that bump that it has makes vocals sound wonderful.
Right.
It just gives it that mid-range warmth that we all love about that microphone. The TLM 170 does not have that. It's extremely flat.
Yeah.
So if the guy was kind of, you just trade off. All right, that didn't work for him. Swap this mic out. And it was always one or the other for me.
Yeah.
With the saxophone. The other instance where the musician makes a difference. I was at Eastman. This would have been in the early 90s. And they decided to do an edition of Marion McPartland's Piano Jazz.
Okay.
You guys remember that show from a lifetime ago?
Yeah.
Marion McPartland is a jazz pianist, and she had this weekly show on PBS called Piano Jazz. And she would play, and she would always have a guest. And at this point, Marion was in her 80s, but she could still play.
Yeah.
Just terrific player. And they decided they were going to do an episode of Piano Jazz live from Eastman Theater. So that's cool. That's exciting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So we set up two grand pianos on the stage of Eastman Theater. And the format of the show is Marion would come out and play, or a guest would come out and play.
Okay.
Marion would come out and play. And then the two of them would come out and play. So sort of a three act gig.
Sure. Yeah.
The guest would play, she would play, and then they both come out and play because there were two grand pianos on the stage.
Yeah.
So the featured grand piano, it was a nice big old Steinway D. Beautiful.
Those are still there, by the way.
Condition. Yeah, I'm sure they are.
There.
So I set up for the gig, and the guest artist played first. And I had a pair of, I'm thinking, Sheps. I can't remember the model numbers of those anymore, but they were the Sheps, a cardioid, small diaphragm cardioid, really good microphone, good preamps. I was really fussy about the signal chain at that point and had some good stuff happening, and was struggling for the whole first half of this rehearsal, trying to get a decent sound. But I had something that was workable. It was decent. And it took a break. I said, well, Marion's going to come on and play a little bit. I had made a couple of minor adjustments, but thought, well, let's see. I might have to change microphones. These just might not work on this piano on this particular day in this particular hall. Even though they were great yesterday, today they might not.
Sure.
So Marion comes out, and I'm sitting down thinking, all right, I got other microphones at the ready. She starts playing. It's glorious. It is the most beautiful piano sound I have ever heard. I'm thinking, all right, that last little tweak I did must have been me, right? Had to be me. She plays a couple of numbers. WNED's happy. There's a big remote truck sitting out in the alley behind the theater.
Sure.
I'm giving them the feed. I've got the quad split camera feed in the control room, so I can see what's up. I can see what camera's going. Not that it changes anything I'm doing. I'm just doing a mix of the house and the recording to send to the broadcast feed. This is a live broadcast. This is going out live on PBS from Eastman Theater.
Sure.
So a little bit of pressure. So great. We all go out to dinner, come back, and the countdown to the show happens. They do the intro from WNAD. They throw it back into the theater. I bring up the faders on the console. Guest artist comes out, sits down. The piano sounds like ass. It is just dreadful. It is dark. It is murky. It has no life. I'm sitting there going, oh man, my career is over. It's a national broadcast on PBS, and I've just produced the worst, most god-awful piano sound that's ever
Please, no one know it was me.
Like,
yeah. Take me off the credits.
I'm calling the guy in the truck. Hey, listen, you get the credits up yet? Yeah, just say Eastman School of Music.
Just delete it.
Yeah, delete it.
No credits.
I want to crawl under the console. I'm thinking, shit, a microphone must have fallen off. The stand must be moved down. I don't know.
Right.
Something is. So we get to intermission. TV's, throws back to the station. They're doing blah, 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 probably doing a fundraising cell.
Right.
Sure.
As you guys know, that the control room
is not exactly close.
It's not exactly anywhere near.
So I'm running down the hall, busting through the door. I'm wrapping up on stage. Well, the microphones are right where they should be. They haven't moved. I'm thinking, do I change the mics? No, I can't change the mics. No, I can't take a chance. No. Shit. Well, everything's where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's go time again anyway. So
back to the control room. I sit there, my head hanging down. I'm thinking, man, this is it. I got to, I guess I got to go back to fixing cars. Lift up the second half of the show. Marion walks out, sits down, starts to play the most glorious piano sound you've ever heard. Just beautiful, open, clean, bright, sparkly, and just
you just made her look really good.
And I'm sitting there thinking, son of a bitch.
That's Dave Dusman, D-A-V-E.
Call it a truck. Put the name back in.
And that's when I learned that it's the artist.
Yeah.
Same piano, same day, same mics, two different artists. One sounded awful and one was just glorious.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it hit me. Okay.
Yeah, that realization.
And it happens with any instrument.
Yeah,
sure.
It depends on the artist.
Yeah.
Certainly with pianos, and even though you think, well, it's a mechanical, right? You push the key, it flips a couple of things, and it goes boing.
Yes, technically.
But how hard do you push it? When do you, push it?
It is all in the touch. And I since learned from working, with a bunch of pianists in the faculty at Eastman, it really is the touch, and it makes all the difference in the world. And that's what piano teachers teach.
Yeah,
sure.
After they teach technique of crossing over your fingers and all of that, then it all just comes down to how do you touch that key?
Yeah.
How do you create that sound?
Yeah.
And it just blew me away. And I've never forgotten that. And, if you just can't get a sound, well, sometimes if you got a bad artist, you're just not going to
replace the artist.
Find somebody else to play.
Well, on that note, I think we've taken enough of your time here. We're going on like an hour and a half. So.
Well, it's been a blast.
Yeah, we want to thank you for doing this and
you.
coming on here and chatting with us. So we'll see you guys soon.
And hopefully see you out in the world real soon.
Well, that was fun, wasn't it, Krusty?
Dude, that was hysterical. Dave's a good guy.
Chance to sit down with Dave. Thanks to Dave again for hanging out with us.
Yes, thank you.
For a couple hours, and now we get to kind of edit it down to something that's a little bit more reasonable for you guys. So that was fun, and we're going to do it again. I think we got John McGarry from Yamaha lined up to come into the green room.
Yes, John McGarry.
And so if there's anybody else you want to see in the green room, hang out with, ask questions to.
Yeah, we got a few lined up, actually. Charlie Eaton as well.
Oh, Charlie Eaton? Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're going to try to con Nick Gonsman into it, too.
Yeah,
he doesn't know it yet, though.
Yeah, he doesn't know it yet. He will, though.
He will. Maybe after he watches.
He's on the list. We got a bunch. Actually, I got a whole list here. I'm just trying to work through it slowly and not get too much on our plate all at once here. So.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely don't want to overpromise and underdeliver or anything, right?
Yeah, we'll just underdeliver.
Just underdeliver, underpromise, and underdeliver.
Yeah. That's what I'm going with.
All right, perfect. Well, that was fun. Don't forget to look for the registration updates for the upcoming webinars. And then stay tuned for more episodes of The Green Room.
Yes. And don't forget to follow us on any of our various social medias and smash the like button when you get the opportunity, and comments and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, and ring the bell so you know when there's new videos dropping. So.
yeah, and as this goes along, hopefully this will pick up and get you more content.
Yeah. Thanks again. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye bye.